Hi, Super Retrocade here. I thought I'd make this video about a component matrix switcher that I just purchased. So if you're like me and you have a lot of your systems RGB modded and you're using HD Retrovision cables and you've got everything running through component, you're probably, once you get quite a few systems, you start looking at, how can I distribute this across my CRTs and my flat panel displays and whatnot. And there's a couple good products online. One of them is the G-Comp switch. They make a couple versions of it, a 4x1 and 8x2. And those are auto switching. So the way that those kind of differ from a matrix switch is a G-Comp switch would do what it's doing right now, where it displays the same thing on both. But what's kind of cool about a matrix switcher is if you look at the remote here, this is actually a 6x4. So you can drive 4 different displays off of this switcher, and you can have 6 different input sources. And you can switch, like display 2 here is my flat panel. I can switch it from 1 being my Sega Genesis to 2, or no, I guess 1 is my Super Nintendo, 2 is my Genesis. So now I have them playing 2 different things. And then I can also switch which is doing which. So now I've got Donkey Kong Country 2 over on the CRT, and I've got Star Wars Rebel Assault from Sega on Sega CD over on my flat panel. So that's what's kind of cool, and you can do that with up to 4 different displays. So let me try to switch them back. I kind of want Star Wars on that one. So then another thing that's really cool about this model, and the model that I have here is, this is a Channel Vision Pro model P-1421. And I was actually looking at Shiny Bow products. Shiny Bow makes an 8x8 switcher, or component switcher. But the thing that I found that's really cool about this one is the source indicator lights. So when you power on a system on an input source, it'll actually tell you which ones are active. And the way that it's actually figuring out which one is active is it's going off of the sync signal. So if I hook up like a G-Comp switch, which is auto switching, it actually doesn't detect anything until you actually turn the system on the switch. So that tells me that this thing is being a little more intelligent, which is something I'm happy about. So then when you look at it, all of the advertising on it is about, being up to 1080p. And it actually came with this remote and an additional remote. It actually came with 2 remotes. It came with the rack mount ears, the original manual, and the power adapter, and it's in absolutely pristine condition, which is pretty awesome. And when I go through the manual, everything on the manual talks about 480p, 480i, and 1080p. And that doesn't mean that it can't do 240p. It just means that it wasn't advertised towards people do 240p. Because at the time that this would have been a big thing, what this would have been used for back in the day was, this would have been in the early days of HDTV, where the early HDTVs were all about component. There was only like a year, maybe a year and a half period when HDTVs first came out, that they were all about component, before HDMI became real prevalent. So when you were doing that, you were mainly trying to get 480p, 720p, and 1080i, maybe 1080p into these flat screens over component. And so what this would have generally been for was you'd probably have this rack mounted in some sort of whole home solution, and you'd be using the RS-232 port on the back of it, which is like a serial port for hooking it up to like home automation stuff. And you'd be using this to send video all around your home, or you'd be using it in like a conference room setup at like a business. So that's actually why I was pretty pumped about this model, because I've dealt with like Extron stuff that's similar to this, where they never had IR remotes. So it's pretty cool that this one has IR remotes, and it's really awesome that they sent me 2 of them and everything's in like perfect condition. So what I wanted to do was make sure that it's handling 240p properly. So one of my like layman ways of doing that is if I go into the source on the TV and just select component again, this TV will actually show me the resolution, and you can see 720 by 240 at 60p. Now this TV is on HD Retrovision's website under the third-party products, and is a confirmed TV that handles 240p properly. So when I go into the system menu, when I go into the sources and I do what I just did, that's the exact same thing that it displays when I am not running it through the switch. That's the same resolution. So based on me seeing the same thing when I select component and see the resolution, and based on me not seeing any weird artifacting or anything, I'm gonna say that this switcher is basically just like doing like, I mean, it's not a mechanical switcher, but I don't think it's doing anything to the signals. The only thing it might be doing to the signals is making sure that there's no attenuation. And since this is like a higher end pro home automation model, I'm pretty sure that this thing is safe to not be screwing up the signals. So I guess the only other thing to really show is the way that the front works. The way that the front works is there's 4 buttons for each of the outputs, which would be each of your TVs, and then there's a button for each of the 6 inputs. So that's my new pickup, the Channel Master, the Channel Vision Pro component switcher. Here's kind of a brief look on the back. The back is just a bunch of component RCA connections. Let me try to get it here. Yeah, that's about the best look I can get. So that's 4x6. And another thing is there's little feet on here too, under here, to actually have it sitting on a surface like this if you're going to put it in an entertainment center. Those feet come off depending on whether or not you're going to rack mount it. So this is a pretty cool little switcher. And you might be wondering, like, why would he buy this if he has a G-Comp switch? I actually have the 4x1 and the 8x2 model. And the big advantage of this is if there's 2 people and they wanted to play 2 systems at the same time on 2 different screens, they can. So I could be on one playing SNES and someone else could be on the other one playing 64. Or like I have 2 GameCubes with the broadband adapter, and I could have them both running into this switcher, and I could actually play Mario Kart Double Dash over LAN play through component on both, or on whichever displays. You know, I don't know ultimately when I get this all set up if I'm gonna do a CRT and a flat panel like I am now, or if I'm going to do my 2 flat panels in my CRT. But it's just cool the extra versatility that this switcher gives me. And the really cool thing about this one is the source status indicator. So you know when you turn on a system, which system you're actually using. So this is Super Retrocade. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.